After 30 seconds of confusion, the Millionaire's Heartwarming ACT revealed an unexpected bond. The sun blazed over the small town fair as families mingled, the sweet scent of caramel apples and popcorn filling the air. Suddenly, chaos erupted. A sleek, black luxury car barreled into Ben's garage, shattering the peace. All heads turned, faces frozen in shock. Ben, a 30-something mechanic, felt his heart drop. It was a generous reminder that his father's shop, his legacy, was on the line. Wasn't he it always? Stunned onlookers murmured among themselves, casting disapproving glances at the newcomer, Daniel, the billionaire who daringly freshened their quiet town with his extravagant ways. "Look at him," they whispered. "What does he know about real struggle?" Ben's pulse quickened as anger bubbled within him. Here was a man who never felt the raw edge of sacrifice, who floated above their world in a gilded bubble, and he was about to ruin everything. Yet, as the silence thickened, something surprising happened. Daniel stepped out, frazzled but genuinely concerned. "I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, eyes wide, radiating sincerity. He extended a hand toward Ben, not knowing the turmoil he triggered. Some townspeople hissed, others stood mutely in disbelief. The idyllic day had shattered, but in that first critical 30 seconds, Ben felt an unusual pressure building within him, a resistive force, pulling him toward understanding. His mind spiraled. He remembered nights when his mother sat with bills spread across the kitchen table, tears glimmering like tiny waves of anguish. Each penny had been a battle won. What could this man in the fancy suit know of such struggles? More whispers circled, discontent rising like a tidal wave. Ben balled his fists, grappling with rapidly enlarging prejudices, an all-too-familiar narrative of us versus them spiraling through his thoughts. Then, as though in slow motion, Daniel took a deep breath. "Let me help you fix this," he offered, genuine concern etched across his face. "Not just because I can, but because I want to. I want to connect." Ben paused, his heart racing. What was this man really after? A noble act or the start of something far more complicated? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Under a blanket of stars, Ben and Daniel found themselves elbow-deep in engine grease, laughter breaking up their exhausted silence. They shared stories, revealing hopes and regrets that danced beneath their facades. Ben's disdain softened, revealing a bond stitched from vulnerability. Soon the whole town began to perceive the unlikeliest of friendships blossoming. Then out of nowhere, like a storm brewing on the horizon, trouble struck the community. The local school faced slashing funding cuts that threatened its very future. Voices rose in panic, echoes of despair mingled with fear clenching at the town's heart. Ben felt the intense weight of choices pressing upon him. Where did pride take him now? Would he risk everything he clung to for something potentially beautiful, a partnership that transcended wealth? Standing on the precipice of a decision, his thoughts surged, grappling against that deep-seated resentment. Would he take a chance on this unexpected friendship or slip back into the shadows of anger? Only one thing was certain: the fate of his community now hinged on what came next. The quiet tension that had settled over the garage was palpable. Ben stood facing Daniel, his heart a tangled mess of anger and interest, torn between the familiar walls of pride and the newfound possibility of hope. The town's whispers faded into the background, or maybe he was just too lost in thought to hear them anymore. "Look," Ben finally said, his voice shaky but resolute, "I don't know if I can trust you. We're talking about more than just fixing a car here. This goes deeper." Daniel nodded, his brow creasing in understanding. "I get it. But if we're going to face this together, I have to earn that trust. I won't shy away from the hard stuff." Ben appreciated the sincerity in Daniel's voice, a pure contrast to the snickering doubts of the townspeople. The gulf between them felt worth crossing, but could he do it without losing himself? Could he let this stranger, this millionaire, in? Look, the school needs funds fast, Ben said, arms crossed tightly over his chest, as if physically guarding his heart. We don't just need cash, we need support. People here don't trust outsiders, especially not wealthy ones. Daniel stepped closer, his expression fierce yet earnest. So let us change that narrative, he proposed. I may have a lot of money, but I want to use it where it counts. If we focus on the school, we'll show everyone that I'm not just some clueless rich guy. I want to invest in this community, but I can't do it alone. Picturing the nervous children whose laughter used to fill the now silent school, Ben's heart began to soften. He thought about the dedicated teachers who poured their souls into their work, and the sadness that would spill over if their school disappeared. Could he really let someone like Daniel help? Still, the voices of dissent echoed in his mind, loud and unforgiving. What if it doesn't work? What if you make it worse? He asked, frustration boiling beneath the surface. Daniel raised an eyebrow, determination lighting his blue eyes. What if it does work? What if we change everything for them? Just imagine the excitement of a fully funded art program or a new science lab. They deserve that. It could spark something incredible. For a moment, Ben remained silent, visualizing the possibilities, children running around carefree, experiencing arts and science flourishing in their school. Maybe, just maybe, risking a bit of pride could yield something greater. Fine, Ben said suddenly, the resolve flooding back into his voice. Let's do it, but on one condition, transparency. You have to keep the trust of the community. No backdoor deals. We do this together. Daniel's face broke into a smile, warm and genuine. I promise. Together it is. As they set out to tackle the problem, step by step, Ben felt a flicker of something he hadn't in a long time: hope. The town still watched them closely, some in disbelief while others seemed reluctantly curious. Yet, as plans took shape, unexpected hurdles loomed ahead. A significant hurdle arose when old attitudes re-emerged, igniting tension among townspeople. Over the next few days, shadows of doubt began to creep in, along with harsh judgment towards both Ben and Daniel. What could a mechanic and a billionaire truly accomplish together? Determined to face the storm, Ben inhaled deeply. Just when we thought we were doing something good, they're going to fight back, he warned. Are you really ready for this? Daniel's eyes remained steadfast. I've never turned away from a fight when it's for something real. But as their plans started unfolding, a whispered betrayal began to swirl dangerously close, threatening not just their newfound friendship but everything they were trying to achieve. Would they be able to withstand the pressure? Ben couldn't shake the feeling that the real struggle was just beginning. The next chapter of their story wouldn't just test the limits of their partnership, but that of the community itself. Would they endure the trials ahead, or would they slip back into the shadows of their doubts? Ben took a step back, his head spinning as the weight of their mission pressed down on him. The garage felt suddenly smaller, the air thick with doubt. He glanced at Daniel, who wore an expression of fierce determination but also a hint of concern. It was clear he sensed the tide turning against them. You can feel it too, can't you? Ben asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. Yeah. Not everyone is going to embrace this, at least not right away. But we need to show them why we're doing this. The next day, they met at the town hall. As Ben stood in front of the small gathering, he could feel the heat of their gazes boring into him. Old faces and new lines wore skepticism as their murmurs echoed off the walls. Why should we let you in? You don't belong here, one elder spat out, arms crossed defiantly. Ben's stomach knotted. He inhaled deeply, trying to find the right words. You're right, he started, his heart racing as he glanced at Daniel for support. But I'm here because I care about the school, just like you do. I want to help our kids, our community. What do we have to lose by trying? A wave of silence rolled through the room, the elders whispering among themselves, but he reached out desperately. Daniel isn't just a millionaire. He is someone who wants to learn. He wants to understand this town. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. What if we held a community meeting every week? Let you and the kids voice your concerns, ideas, and dreams. I'll listen, and more importantly, I will act. The silence continued, but a few young parents started nodding their heads. They wanted to believe. They wanted more for their kids. But as the meeting wrapped up, Ben felt sympathy mixed with anger. It was easy for them to doubt, but what about their dreams? Change doesn't come easy, he told Daniel later, frustration bubbling within him. We're walking on thin ice. People still think you're just throwing money around. You have to show them you're invested, genuinely. I get it, Daniel replied quietly. I didn't come here to just write checks. I want to change minds, to earn their respect. They spent the next few weeks working hard, setting up opportunities for collaboration, collecting supplies for classrooms, reaching out for volunteers. The more they engaged, the more hesitant respect they earned from those who had once taunted them. Kids responded, their excitement infectious. For the first time, laughter echoed through the hallways. But then came the storm, the confrontation Ben had feared but hoped to avoid. A rumor spread, claiming Daniel was planning to tear down the school, to build something profitable, a mall or a hotel. The anger ignited like a firestorm. On Friday night, the town held a rally, and both Ben and Daniel stood at the forefront, ready to face the backlash. Ben's heart raced as the crowd surged. He could feel every eye boring into him like arrows. You're betraying us, Ben. Someone shouted, anger lacing their voice. The whispers filled the air, becoming a roar, drowning out the genuine intentions behind their plans. With emotion crashing over him, Ben raised a hand for silence. Listen. He cried out, voice cracking. We're here to build something together, something that lasts. But if you want to give us a chance, then we've already lost. The crowd slowly quieted, their hardened expressions offering little reassurance. He looked to Daniel, who remained resolute, the spark of determination never wavering. How would they mend this fraying thread between them and the people of the town? Could they stand firm against this rising tide of suspicion and betrayal? A sense of urgency filled the air as the doubts loomed larger than ever. Then Daniel stepped forward again, breathing deeply. If anyone can show you my intentions, it's through actions. I'm here for the kids, for the school, for you. But as he spoke, Ben caught a glimpse of someone behind them, a familiar face, a figure ready to tear apart their fragile partnership. What did this mean for their future? Ben felt dread settle in his bones. Would they be able to hold together in the face of betrayal, or were they fated to watch everything collapse? The murmurs in the crowd grew louder as the familiar face moved closer. Ben squinted through the dim light, and his heart sank as he recognized Teresa, his childhood friend turned bitter adversary. The fire in her eyes was unmistakable. She had always been a fighter for the community, standing on the front line, protecting their town's soul. Ben! She called out, her voice cutting through the unease like a knife. You were one of us. What happened to you? This, she gestured wildly to Daniel. This is not the answer. Ben felt the collective tension shift toward him. Every gaze seemed eager to see how he would react. Teresa, please, just listen. This isn't about him. It's about all of us. We can't keep holding on to the past when it's dragging us down. Dragging us down. Her laugh was sharp and bitter, causing several attendees to nod in agreement. You're selling us out for a promise? What do you think money can fix? Daniel stepped forward, his voice firm yet calm. I didn't come here to buy anything. This isn't a business deal for me. I'm here because I believe in this community. I want to see it thrive. I want to build a future, not a mall or a hotel. The crowd hesitated, but just before they could respond, Teresa pushed forward. If you truly want to help, what about the school's art program? The sports teams? The kids' after-school activities? Her words rolled off her tongue like a challenge, daring them to prove their intentions. Ben felt trapped between his friend and a community he desperately wanted to unite. He looked at Daniel, searching for a glimmer of hope, a way out of this mess. Teresa, what if we could allocate funds to support those programs? We could bring them back to life together. That's not enough. You need more than just talk. Show us your plan. Make it real. She crossed her arms defiantly, her demand resonating through the crowd. Ben took a deep breath, heart racing. If we held a fundraiser, something vibrant that brings everyone together, we could showcase our talents, support our programs, and build some trust. It could be a celebration of our town, a rebirth, maybe. A flicker of consideration passed through Teresa's expression. The crowd murmured again, uncertainty mingling with intrigue. And what if it fails? She asked, no longer as aggressive but still cautious. Then we keep trying. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We owe it to our kids and to ourselves. This grief, this anger, it won't help anyone. Ben's resolve settled into his words, and he knew this was it. But you have to stand with me, Teresa. We need you. Daniel's gaze shifted to Ben. The glint of admiration was there, a reassurance that even in this storm, they were in it together. Let us do this. Let us host a town fiesta, a fundraiser. We'll let people see firsthand what we can achieve. Teresa's eyes softened slightly. You really believe it can work? I believe we can grow together, Ben replied. That a wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some faces began to brighten, hope stirring among them. But as the momentum built, Ben's heart raced again. There were still those who remained skeptical, especially those for whom change felt threatening. Suddenly, another voice broke through the buzz. What's in it for you, millionaire? A cold question from the back. Why should we trust a rich guy to care about our kids? Daniel stood tall, eyes scanning the crowd. You shouldn't trust me. But I'm ready to earn your trust, one step at a time. Together, we can make something that matters. Ben felt the weight of those words climb upon him. Could they really pull this together? Could they turn the tide, or was it too little, too late? As the crowd quieted, Ben caught Teresa's gaze again. There was something there, a flicker of hope that she might rally behind them. But when he looked behind her, he saw another familiar face, someone he never expected to see again. Someone who could threaten everything they had just built. His mind raced, heart pounding. What new twist awaited them now? Would this be the challenge that finally broke their spirit? Or could it be the spark they needed to ignite real change? Ben's breath caught in his throat as his eyes focused on the figure stepping out of the shadows. It was Emma, his sister. Her presence was an unwelcome surprise, an unexpected twist that sent ripples of anxiety through him. He hadn't seen her in years, not since their family fell apart. The town had torn them apart, driven a wedge in their relationship that neither had bothered to mend. Emma, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the murmurs around him. What are you doing here? She asked, her brow furrowed, the same fire in her gaze mirroring Teresa's. I thought you left this place behind. The crowd was silent now, each person holding their breath as both Teresa and Daniel turned their attention towards this new development. Emma, once the bright-hearted artist of their family, had grown into the embodiment of Ben's past, the tether to everything he tried to escape. I'm here to help, he managed, though it felt like a weak defense against the weight of their shared history. Help with what? Emma crossed her arms, disbelief painted across her features. Helping a millionaire future seller who could care less about what happens to this town. Ben's heart sank. He could sense the silent judgment from the crowd, the questions swirling just beneath the surface. Emma, he pleaded, it's not about him being a millionaire. This is about us. About the town. The kids need programs. We need to come together as a community, not tear each other down. Then why aren't you doing it without him? She shot back, her anger mingling with hurt. Hiding behind Daniel doesn't take away the fact that you walked away first. A collective gasp went through the crowd. They were witnessing something raw, something deeply personal. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if the holiday festival they envisioned might hang in the balance of this unearthing confrontation. But what if this is our chance? Ben insisted, his voice rising with urgency. What if we could combine our efforts? Together we might bring life back to everything that has been lost. Emma, I need you. We need you. The plea hung in the air, heavy and vulnerable. Emma hesitated, her resolve faltering as the crowd began to murmur again. It felt like a microcosm of their relationship, strained, complicated, yet still tethered with shared dreams and memories. I want to believe that, she said slowly, the anger in her voice giving way to doubt. But how do we trust again, Ben? You've changed. Ben could see he was losing his grip on the moment. The crowd was restless, shifting nervously on their feet. There was fear etched in their faces, reminding him that even if they could somehow bridge these old wounds, trust wouldn't come easily. Change starts here, he shouted, drawing on the desperation in him. Let us make a real plan. I'll involve you, I promise. We can show them that this town, our home, can shine brighter together. The kids deserve better. Let us not let the past trap us. Teresa stepped forward, her voice rising with support. It's going to take every single one of us. If Emma's in, I'm in too. Eyes shifted among the crowd, some beginning to nod slowly. Hope was tentative but alive, fragile yet bright. Emma looked at Teresa, then back to Ben, and finally the gathered crowd. Her walls were starting to crack, and she took a half step forward. If we do this, it has to be real. Everything laid bare. No shortcuts this time. Absolutely, Ben affirmed, feeling the tide starting to turn. This isn't just another empty promise. We're all here to listen to one another, to truly connect. Then, a powerful energy broke through the tension, sparking whispers of excitement in the crowd. Was it possible? But as they began to rally, another voice shouted from the back, sharp and critical. What happens when the money runs out? When the hype fades? Will any of you still care? The question sliced through the air, and suddenly, the precarious balance of emotions tightened again. Would this fragile alliance hold against the looming doubts? Would they drown in past regrets or rise together to create something truly transformative? In that moment, Ben realized everything hinged on what would happen next. Would they all take that leap? Or would the past prove too heavy to lift? Ben's chest tightened at the voice that cut through the atmosphere like a knife. Curious eyes turned toward the back of the crowd, where a familiar face emerged from the shadows. It was Kyle, a longtime resident who had seen his share of community efforts dissolve into nothing. The tension in the air thickened as whispers bounced from ear to ear, a chorus of skepticism and doubt. Yeah, what happens when the spark fades? Kyle pressed, a scowl tugging at his lips. We've been here before. We all know how it ends. Emma's defensive stance stiffened again, mirroring the unease in her brother's heart. The hope that had flickered in the crowd dimmed, threatened by the weight of reality. Please, Ben urged, stepping toward Kyle, this can't be just about fear. We owe it to ourselves to try, to push boundaries and scrape together something real. We can't let the past dictate our future. But at what cost? Kyle asked, crossing his arms. What's the plan? A few banners? A summer camp? That's just kissing the surface. As mutters of agreement rippled through the crowd, Ben felt every ounce of confidence begin to wane. He needed to shift the focus back to possibility, back to the dream they could create together. Okay, let us talk real, he said, his voice steady, though his palms were clammy. I think we all know that's only part of it. But this isn't just about plans, it's about commitment. If we join forces now, we can create programs that last, that evolve with the community's needs. I want to stand here and promise pie-in-the-sky ideals. This has to mean something to every one of us. His words hung for a moment, the crowd contemplating the resistance of tradition against the desire for change. The tension became palpable, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Emma inhaled deeply, and Ben could see the fire igniting behind her eyes once again. "All right," she responded, her voice firm, "if we're doing this, we need to be brutally honest with each other. We can't hold back, and we can't hide behind anyone, especially not Daniel." The mention of Daniel momentarily brought Ben back to reality. He had deliberately kept the millionaire's involvement in the spotlight, hoping it would attract attention and resources that the town desperately needed. But what if Emma was right? Could they forge ahead without leaning too hard on Daniel's influence? A wave of conviction surged through him as he glanced over at his sister, feeling the weight of their shared history settle into a tentative understanding. "You're right," he admitted, a new sense of urgency flooding his thoughts. "So let us talk details. Let us figure out how we can mobilize this community as one. If we go all in, we can break the cycle Kyle mentioned, make some noise that even he can hear." The crowd began to nod, the hints of optimism rekindled with every word exchanged. Kyle stepped forward, his brow furrowing slightly as he began reconsidering his stance. "If you really mean that, I'll help. But I want transparency. I want to see it laid out every step." Ben swallowed hard, relishing the cautious optimism blossoming around him. "Deal. We'll lay it all out on the table." As murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, a sense of momentum started to build. Conversation sparked, ideas flowed, and for the first time in a long while, Ben could sense a burgeoning hope weaving its way through the community. But then, a sudden commotion at the edge of the festival disrupted the moment. A couple of kids' faces animated with excitement rushed toward the group, breathless and wide-eyed. "Mr. Ben!" One of them shouted, his voice like a light cutting through the thickening air. "You have to come quick. There is something incredible happening at the fountain." The crowd turned, a new spark of curiosity igniting. What could be happening? Ben looked between Emma and the others, their anticipation mirrored in his own heart. Could this be the unexpected twist that would lead them closer to the unity they sought, or was it merely another distraction? "Let us go see," he encouraged, already moving toward the fountain. As the group began to move, a thrilling blend of hope and anxiety rushed through him. In that moment, nothing felt certain, but he knew the answer lay just ahead, a chance to seize the unknown and cultivate better together. What awaited them at the fountain would change everything once again. As they pressed their way through the crowd, the sun dropped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the festival lawn. The kids led the charge, darting between adults, their excited giggles echoing in the warm evening air. Ben followed close behind, his heart racing with both curiosity and a flicker of hope. Emma was at his side, her expression caught between concern and eagerness. "What do you think it is?" she asked, glancing up at him. Ben shrugged, trying to feign confidence. "I've got no idea, but I hope it's something good." As they approached the fountain, the ruckus grew louder. A gathering crowd circled around, their faces lit with wonder. Ben's stomach tightened with anticipation. Was this the moment that could bridge the gap between fear and the dream they had been cultivating, or was it simply another fleeting spectacle? When they finally arrived, the scene unfolded before them like a painting. A makeshift stage had formed around the fountain, adorned with colorful banners. At the center, a group of children had commandeered a raised platform, their voices ringing out. In stark contrast to the festival's earlier skepticism, these kids were full of joy, singing a cheerful tune they'd all learned together. "What is going on?" Ben asked one of the nearby onlookers, a neighbor he recognized. "Looks like they decided to put on a show," she replied, her smile infectious. Suddenly, amidst the laughter, a large figure stepped forward from the back, the town's millionaire, Daniel. To Ben's surprise, he was taking a seat on the edge of the fountain, smiling warmly at the kids, who were now singing specifically for him. The sight of the usually aloof and refined businessman softened Ben's skeptical view. "Look at him," Emma whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "I never thought he could do this." Children eagerly jumped off the stage, dashing toward Daniel with smiling faces and wide arms. He knelt down, and for a moment it felt as though he was no longer the rich outsider, but just a man connecting with the innocence of youth. "Okay, who wants to show me their dance moves?" Daniel asked, a teasing grin plastered across his face. The kids erupted again, eager to participate, their laughter lifting the spirits of everyone around them. For a few moments, the town seemed to hold its breath, enraptured by this unexpected scene. Ben felt a warmth spreading through him, a glimmer of the unity he had been fighting for reflected in the shimmering water of the fountain. "It's incredible," he breathed. "He's actually engaging with them." Emma nodded, her expression softening. "Maybe he wants to be part of something real, too." Just then, as the children began to dance, something caught Ben's eye, an elderly man at the edge of the crowd, his face etched with tears of joy. It was Mr. Thompson, a figure from a different time, the last of a generation that remembered when the town had been full of laughter, connecting with the energy radiating from the fountain. "Maybe this is what we all need," Ben said, his voice low and almost reverent. "Not just Daniel or Kyle or the plans we drafted, but shared moments like this that remind us." As he spoke, a melody of hope began to hum in the hearts of everyone present. It was more than just singing, it was about a connection, a reminder that the community was still alive. But just as the celebration reached its peak, Kyle suddenly pushed his way through the throng, his face stormy. "This is all just a distraction," he shouted, pulling everyone back to the harshness of reality. "What happens when the song ends? We're still facing the same problems." A collective gasp pulsed through the crowd. The joyous spirit thickened, struggling against Kyle's interruption. Ben felt his own heart drop. Could this moment, which had so much promise, be crushed under the weight of fear again? He looked between Kyle and Daniel, both pivotal figures in what the community could become. How could he bring them together instead of letting their differences tear this moment apart? "Then let's make sure it doesn't end," Ben said, locking eyes with Emma. "Let's talk about how we can turn this into something lasting together." With the crowd holding its breath, all eyes turned to Ben and the future that lay just around the corner. Would they embrace this unexpected spark? And as Ben prepared to take the next step, he wondered if reality had other plans waiting in the wings. Ben took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Could his voice really make a difference? He stepped forward, his feet moving despite the doubts swirling in his mind. The laughter of the kids faded slightly, the crowd still buzzing with both excitement and apprehension. "Everyone, just listen for a second," Ben called out, his voice steadying as he fought to gather their attention. The happy dancing paused, and the children glanced between him and Daniel, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. "Right now, we're witnessing something special," he said, gesturing towards the kids who had just shared their joy. "It's not just about the music or the dancing. It's about us. We're all craving connection, and that's what Daniel is showing us." Daniel, still seated on the fountain's edge, met Ben's gaze with an affirming nod. His eyes held a flicker of surprise, and Ben could see a shift in the man's demeanor, a softness breaking through the polished exterior. "But," Ben continued, pivoting towards Kyle, "I get it. We can't ignore the problems looming over us. They're there, and they're real. We need to talk about them, not sweep them under the rug." Kyle's scowl softened slightly, but he remained defiant, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "Talking is not enough, Ben. Words don't fix rotting buildings or broken dreams." "I know," Ben replied, his voice measured but urgent. "But this moment matters. If we want to solve anything, we need to start with building trust. And that means we can't let fear win here. We have to take a step forward together." The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling through the people standing around the fountain. Some glanced at one another, weighing the notion, could fear really be overcome with a new bond? "Maybe if we," Emma started, sensing the shift, but Kyle interrupted her before she could finish. "Together? With him?" He pointed his finger dramatically at Daniel. You really believe he cares? He's just trying to buy his way into our hearts. This is just a performance for him. The accusation hung heavy in the air, and for a moment, Ben thought he could see cracks forming in the fragile unity they had been building. But then Daniel stood up, a quiet fire in his eyes as if he had decided that he wouldn't let the moment slip away. Let us not forget, Daniel spoke, his voice calm yet firm, that I want to be part of this community. I've been so focused on my business that I lost touch with what really matters. The crowd seemed to lean in, even Kyle's posture shifting toward openness. Daniel continued, what I see here today is potential. In each of you, and in this town. I want to help build something together, but it starts with willingness on all sides. Tension crackled in the air, and Ben could feel the energy in the crowd shifting once again, uncertainty morphing into possibility. Then what do we do? A woman from the back spoke up. How do we turn this moment into something real? Ben caught Emma's hopeful gaze. She knew what he was thinking, and he realized they had to harness this sentiment. We create a community forum. A space where we can voice our fears and dreams. And everyone can join, he rallied, determined, even if we don't always agree. It's a starting point, no more shadows under the fountain. Kyle hesitated, his brow creasing. Then he finally nodded, albeit reluctantly. Fine, I'm in. But it better not just be empty words. Agreed, Daniel chimed in. And I promise my support won't just be financial. I want to be engaged. As the eagerness bubbled back into the crowd, Ben felt a sudden swell of warmth. Hope wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it was transforming into action. But just then, a loud crack echoed from behind them. A nearby booth had collapsed, sending people scrambling. What now? Emma gasped, eyes wide as the reality of the situation came rushing back. Ben's heart raced again, thinking about how quickly excitement could turn to dread. Stay calm. He shouted, bracing himself as everyone rallied around, both new friendships and old frustrations fading into urgency. And as chaos erupted, Ben couldn't help but wonder if they could truly turn this moment into lasting change. Would they rise together when it mattered most? In the chaos that followed, Ben felt an electric mix of fear and adrenaline surging through him. A booth collapsing wasn't just a random misfortune, it was a symbol of everything they were trying to rebuild. This moment could shatter the fragile trust they'd begun to establish. Help over here. Someone shouted. A crowd of concerned faces turned in their direction, eyes wide, scanning for whom to aid. Ben's instincts kicked in, and he dashed toward the fallen booth, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the scattered calls for help. Make a path. He shouted, waving his arms as he moved closer, his eyes searching for anyone trapped beneath the wooden structure. The heavy booth had crumpled like paper, splintering the air with a sharp, jarring sound. Is anyone hurt? Ben called, kneeling down to get a better view. He felt Daniel rush up behind him, a fierce determination glinting in his eyes. I'll lift it from this side, Daniel said, scanning the wreckage. We need to get everyone out quickly. Just then, a weak voice cried out from under the debris. Help! I can't move. It was a girl, her voice laced with desperation. Panic seized Ben's heart as he locked eyes with Emma, who stood frozen, shock written across her face. Emma! He yelled, snapping her out of it. Go get help. Call for an ambulance. Emma nodded, breaking into a sprint to find someone who could assist. Ben felt a surge of adrenaline as he and Daniel shoved their shoulders against the booth's remnants. It groaned under the pressure, but they pushed harder. On 3. Ben yelled. They counted together, 1, 2, 3. With a grunt, they heaved the booth just enough for the girl to slide out. Relief washed over Ben as he saw her face. She was a teenager, trembling and tear-streaked. Are you okay? He asked, offering her a hand as Daniel pulled his shirt off, wrapping it around her like a protective shield. I think so, she stammered, glancing around in confusion. "We've got you. You're safe now," Daniel murmured, his tone softer than Ben had ever heard it. The billionaire was no longer a distant figure, he was a human trying to help, just like everyone else. The crowd began to echo their relief, a wave of applause flooding in as more people arrived to assist. Ben felt a swell of emotion, the bond being formed in this crisis felt deeper than anything they'd built moments before. It proved that no matter the differences, they could unite in the face of adversity. As paramedics arrived, they took charge, checking on the girl who was now cradled in blankets and surrounded by concerned bystanders. Ben and Daniel stepped back, their hearts racing, adrenaline giving way to relief. Around them, voices mingled, and he could see Kyle talking animatedly with a group, their earlier animosities forgotten, at least for now. "Did you see that?" Ben asked Daniel, a grin breaking across his face despite the remnants of fear in his chest. "That's what we need. Action, togetherness." Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We can build on this, Ben. This moment is just the beginning." But as they stood amidst the newfound camaraderie, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that this was only a temporary truce. The deeper issues still loomed overhead, ready to pounce. Will it last? Ben wondered quietly. Could they truly harness this energy for something more meaningful? A thought crossed his mind: what if this was a blessing in disguise? But as he scanned the crowd, a personal realization hit him harder than the chaos. Amid the uncertainty, they had stumbled onto something powerful. Are we ready to face what comes next? He muttered to himself, uncertainty gnawing at him. And then, he locked eyes with Kyle, who was watching him intently. The tension between them was still there, a faint flicker in the backdrop of the day's events. Was it possible that a bridge had begun to form between them two? Would they have the courage to continue building it despite the scariness of the future? As the crowd began to disperse, Ben knew they would need to figure it out together, one shaky step at a time. The sun dipped on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the festival that seemed to hug the tightly knit community together. After the chaos at the fountain, the atmosphere buzzed with a renewed sense of hope and possibility. The crowd trickled back to the booths, laughter mingling with light chatter, each smile a silent promise to nurture the bond they were beginning to share. Ben stood at the edge of the lively scene, Daniel beside him, both men processing everything that had just unfolded. The girl they'd rescued was now being treated by paramedics, her expressions shifting from fear to relief. Ben glanced at her and felt a swelling warmth that had moments before felt distant. "Did you ever think we'd be here?" Ben whispered, almost to himself. Daniel chuckled, the sound rolling like distant thunder in the warm evening. "Honestly? Not really. But maybe that's the magic of moments like this, they jar us into reality." There was something different in Daniel's voice, deeper and more honest than before. "I didn't come here to save the town," Daniel continued, gazing over the lively festival, his eyes flickering with determination. "I came to learn about the people in it. And today, I think I finally understood." Ben nodded slowly, his heart lightening. "You showed them who you really are, not just some billionaire, but a person willing to get dirty and work alongside us, too." Daniel smiled back, a hint of pride illuminating his features. But it was more than just this moment, it was about the journey they had taken. The judgments, misunderstandings, and resentments had not vanished, but they were starting to dissolve into opportunities for connection. As the fair continued, people began to come up to them curious, slightly hesitant, but willing to give them a chance. Kyle approached, rather sheepishly this time, arms uncrossed and a new light in his eyes. "Hey," he started, glancing nervously at Daniel. "Can we talk? I see what you're trying to do. I might have been too quick to judge." The support he offered felt like an opening, a concrete step towards something solid, something genuine. "Really?" Ben asked, surprised but grateful. "Sure, we can hash it out." As they began to chat, Ben watched Emma join the circle, her head held high and her demeanor one of newfound confidence. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it reassuringly. I'm proud of you, Ben. Today is a turning point, she said, her voice low but resonant with warmth. For us all. Thank you, Em. You were right to challenge me, he said, feelings of gratitude swelling within him. I just want to do this right. Then let us do it together, she replied, her resolve shining. The conversation continued seamlessly, with Kyle proposing ideas to launch a secondary fundraiser, one that highlights the art and athletics of their community. Daniel offered to connect them with local businesses he knew who could contribute, asserting that his money was merely a tool, the true value was in their unity and shared vision. Excitement buzzed in the air, reminiscent of the fair's earliest moments. There was an undeniable shift, their trust was being built through honesty and transparency. As they engaged in discussions, the remaining shadows of doubt began to fade. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Ben stepped back for a moment, allowing himself to see the heart of the gathering, families dancing, children laughing, and the representatives of past resentments finding common ground. A small group of children approached, eyes sparkling with mischief and shared dreams. They pulled at Ben's hands, dragging him back to the fountain. Come dance with us, Mr. Ben. They squealed, laughter erupting like a cascade of fireflies. Ben couldn't help but grin, glancing back at Daniel, who chuckled, his blue eyes twinkling with joy. This is the life, Daniel remarked, joining in the fun with the kids, their carefree laughs enveloping him like a warm embrace. Ben felt a rush of gratitude. Everything had changed, but it wasn't a single person or money, it was the willingness to be vulnerable enough to let one another in. They were becoming more than just a mechanic and a millionaire. They were partners on a new path, friends striving to build something worthy. As the evening drew to a close, the sky lit up with fireworks, the townspeople craning their necks, faces aglow with wonder. In that moment, Ben realized they had achieved something remarkable. They had ignited a spark in their community, a spark of unity that wouldn't easily be snuffed out. When the final burst of light faded into stars, Ben stood next to Daniel, who was now surrounded by laughing children, forming silhouettes against the vibrant night. Are you ready for what's next? Ben asked softly, a newfound determination igniting within him. Ready as I'll ever be, Daniel replied with a confident grin. Together, they stepped into a future filled with promise, knowing they were bound by a shared vision for their town. Transformation was not just in moments like today, but in the small, consistent actions they would take in the days to come. And as laughter echoed into the night, Ben knew this was just the beginning of a whole new chapter, full of possibility and hope. So here's the challenge: don't let this story end here. You need to subscribe now for the next exclusive transformations. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like and feeding the algorithm to keep us alive. I want to hear from you, so comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this togetherness.